Every morning, Maya Collins stood in front of her bedroom mirror, carefully choosing clothes that would hide the dark birthmark on her left shoulder. The mark wasn't huge, but to her it felt like a spotlight that everyone could see through any fabric she wore. At 26, Maya had built her entire life around staying invisible. She worked at the city's main library, a job that let her hide behind tall bookshelves and help people find what they needed without much personal conversation. Her coworkers were nice enough, but Maya always ate lunch alone, reading whatever book caught her eye that day. The birthmark had been there since birth. Her mother always told her it made her special, like a little heart painted on her shoulder. But kids at school didn't see it that way. They called it her chocolate stain and asked if she'd tried washing it off. By high school, Maya had learned to wear only high-neck shirts and sweaters, even in summer heat. Now living in her small apartment above the local bakery, Maya had convinced herself she was content with her quiet life. She had her books, her cat named Whiskers, and enough money to pay her bills. What more did she need? But lately something had been changing inside her. Maybe it was watching her younger sister Lisa get engaged last month, glowing with happiness as she planned her wedding. Or perhaps it was the romance novels she'd been reading, where confident women lived bold, exciting lives. The turning point came on a Tuesday evening in October. Maya was walking home from work when she passed the new boutique that had opened on Main Street. The window display showed a beautiful off-shoulder dress in deep blue, the exact color of her eyes. Without thinking, she stepped closer to look at the price tag. "It would look amazing on you," said a voice behind her. Maya turned to see Jessica, a regular library visitor who worked at the local hospital. Jessica had always been friendly, but Maya usually kept their conversations short. "Oh, I don't think so," Maya replied, pulling her cardigan tighter around her shoulders. "Why not? You have such pretty skin, and that color would be perfect with your dark hair." Maya felt her cheeks burn. I don't really wear things like that." Jessica studied her for a moment. "You know, if there's something you're worried about, there are ways to fix almost anything these days. I see it all the time at the hospital." That night, Maya couldn't stop thinking about Jessica's words. She sat at her computer, Whiskers purring on her lap, and found herself typing birthmark removal into the search bar. The results amazed her. Pages and pages of information about laser treatments, surgical options, and success stories. People who had lived with marks and scars for years were sharing photos of their transformations. They looked so happy, so free. Maya read testimonials until 3 a.m. A woman from Texas wrote about finally wearing sleeveless dresses to her daughter's graduation. A man from California shared how removing a facial birthmark had given him the confidence to ask for a promotion at work. But the prices made Maya's heart sink. The good clinics, the ones with excellent reviews and proper certifications, cost thousands of dollars. Maya's savings account had exactly $347. For the next week, Maya couldn't focus on anything else. She made mistakes checking out books, knocked over a display of romance novels, and even forgot to feed Whiskers one morning. The idea of changing her life felt impossible, but she couldn't let it go. On Friday evening, Maya was reorganizing the library's finance section when she came across a book about personal budgeting and goal setting. She flipped through it randomly and stopped at a chapter called Making Your Dreams Affordable. The author explained how she had saved money for her own cosmetic procedure by making small changes to her spending habits and taking on extra work. She broke down every expense and showed how anyone could save for something important to them. Maya checked the book out and spent her weekend making calculations. She could work extra shifts at the library on weekends. The head librarian had mentioned needing help with the Saturday children's programs and Sunday inventory. Maya had always said no because she was too shy to read stories to kids, but maybe it was time to push herself. She could also stop buying her daily coffee from the expensive cafe near work and make it at home instead. That was $5 saved every day. She could walk to work instead of taking the bus when the weather was nice. She could stop ordering takeout on Friday nights and cook simple meals instead. Maya made a spreadsheet, something she'd never done before in her personal life. Column by column, she calculated how much she could save each month. It would take 8 months of careful budgeting and extra work, but she could afford the procedure. The thought scared and thrilled her at the same time. On Monday morning, Maya approached Mrs. Rodriguez, the head librarian, about extra weekend shifts. Her voice shook as she asked, but Mrs. Rodriguez was delighted. "I've been hoping someone would volunteer for the children's programs," she said. "You're so good with the young people who come in for homework help. I think you'd be wonderful at story time." Maya's first Saturday working with kids was terrifying. She stood in front of 12 children under age 6, holding a picture book about a brave little mouse, and her hands trembled. But as she began reading, something magical happened. The children listened with wide eyes, laughing at the funny parts and gasping at the exciting moments. After the session, a little girl named Sophie tugged on Maya's skirt. "Will you read to us again next week?" Sophie asked. Maya smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "Yes, I'll be here." Over the following months, Maya's life developed a new rhythm. She worked her regular library hours, then spent weekends either reading to children or helping organize the book collections. She learned to cook simple pasta dishes and soups instead of ordering pizza. She walked to work even when it was cold, enjoying the fresh air and the money she saved. Most importantly, she began researching clinics. Maya spent hours reading reviews, comparing doctors' qualifications and looking at before and after photos. She learned about different types of procedures, recovery times, and what questions to ask during consultations. By spring, Maya had saved enough money. She'd also gained something she hadn't expected: confidence. Reading to children every weekend had forced her to speak louder, be more expressive, and connect with others. Some of the regular kids now ran up to hug her when they saw her in town. Maya's sister Lisa noticed the change when they met for coffee one April afternoon. "You seem different," Lisa said. "Happier. More, I don't know, more like yourself." Maya smiled. She was ready to make the call that would change everything. That evening, she sat at her kitchen table with her phone, a notepad, and a list of questions she'd prepared. Whiskers sat nearby as if sensing this was an important moment. Maya dialed the number for Coastal Medical Center, the clinic with the best reviews and the most experienced doctors. Her heart pounded as the phone rang. "Coastal Medical Center, how may I help you?" "Hi," Maya said, her voice stronger than she'd expected. "I'd like to schedule a consultation for birthmark removal." "Of course. Let me connect you with our scheduling coordinator." As Maya waited on hold, she looked at her reflection in the window. For the first time in years, she saw not just the shy girl with something to hide, but a woman ready to change her life. Maya stood outside Coastal Medical Center for 5 minutes before getting the courage to walk through the glass doors. She'd imagined this moment hundreds of times, but now that she was here, her palms were sweating, and her heart felt like it might beat right out of her chest. The lobby looked more like a fancy hotel than a medical office. Soft classical music played in the background, and the walls were decorated with peaceful ocean scenes. Maya approached the reception desk where a woman with kind eyes and a warm smile greeted her. "You must be Maya Collins. We spoke on the phone last week." "Yes, that's me," Maya replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Dr. Chen will see you shortly. Please have a seat and fill out these forms. Would you like some water or tea?" Maya chose a chair in the corner where she could watch the door but still feel somewhat hidden. She filled out the paperwork with shaky hands, checking boxes about her medical history and writing down her contact information. Under the section asking about her concerns, she simply wrote, "Birthmark removal." Other patients came and went while Maya waited. A middle-aged woman walked out smiling, touching her face gently like she was protecting something precious. An older man left with bandages on his hands but looked happy and relaxed. Maya Collins? A nurse called her name. Maya followed the nurse down a hallway lined with certificates and awards. She'd done her research on Dr. Chen and knew he was supposed to be one of the best dermatologists in the state. She'd expected someone older, maybe with gray hair and thick glasses like the doctors in movies. The nurse led her to an examination room and told her Dr. Chen would be right with her. Maya sat on the edge of the medical chair, looking at her hands and practicing what she wanted to say. She'd written down questions at home but left the paper in her car because she was too nervous to remember to bring it inside. When the door opened, Maya looked up expecting to see Dr. Chen. Instead, a young man in a white coat walked in, reading something on a tablet. He had dark hair, friendly brown eyes, and looked like he might be around her own age. "I think there's been a mistake," Maya said quickly. "I'm supposed to see Dr. Chen." The young man looked up and smiled. "Dr. Chen had a family emergency and had to leave early today. I'm Dr. Reed and I'll be handling his appointments this afternoon. Is that okay with you?" Maya nodded, though she felt disappointed. She'd spent weeks researching Dr. Chen specifically, and now she was meeting someone she'd never heard of. Dr. Reed seemed to notice her nervousness. "I know this wasn't what you planned, but I promise you're in good hands. I specialize in the same procedures as Dr. Chen, and I've been working with birthmark removal for several years now." He sat down on a rolling stool and set his tablet aside, giving Maya his full attention. "Why don't you tell me what brought you here today?" Maya had practiced this moment, but sitting across from this young, handsome doctor made her forget everything she'd planned to say. "I have a birthmark," she started, then stopped. "I mean, I've had it my whole life, and I want it gone. Can you show me where it is?" Maya hesitated. She was wearing a button-up shirt specifically because she could easily show the birthmark without having to change clothes or feel too exposed. Slowly, she unbuttoned the top few buttons and pulled the fabric aside to reveal her shoulder. Dr. Reed examined the mark carefully, but not in the way Maya was used to. Most people either stared too long or looked away quickly. He studied it with professional interest, like he was solving a puzzle. "How long have you been thinking about having this removed?" he asked while he looked. "Years," Maya admitted. "Maybe my whole life, but seriously, for about 6 months now." "What changed 6 months ago?" The question surprised her. Maya had expected him to ask about her medical history or the size of the birthmark, not about her feelings. "I guess I got tired of hiding," she said honestly. "I realized I was letting this one thing control my whole life." Dr. Reed nodded and moved back to his stool. "That's actually more common than you might think. I see patients all the time who've spent years covering up something that bothers them. The physical procedure is usually the easy part. The emotional decision to change is much harder." Maya felt herself relax a little. Dr. Reed didn't make her feel embarrassed or silly for being bothered by the birthmark. "Tell me about your lifestyle," he said. "Do you exercise regularly? Are you in the sun a lot? Do you have any other medical conditions I should know about?" They talked for 20 minutes about Maya's health, her job at the library, and her daily routine. Dr. Reed asked thoughtful questions and seemed genuinely interested in her answers. When Maya mentioned that she'd been working extra weekend shifts to save money for the procedure, he looked impressed. "That shows real commitment," he said. "A lot of people want changes but aren't willing to work for them." Maya found herself telling him about reading to the children on Saturdays, something she hadn't planned to mention. "I was terrified the first few times, but now it's my favorite part of the week." "You work with kids even though you're shy?" "I guess I'm not as shy as I used to be. At least not with them." Dr. Reed smiled. "That's interesting. Sometimes when we push ourselves in one area of life, it gives us courage in other areas too." He explained the procedure in detail, using simple words that Maya could understand. The birthmark could be removed with a combination of laser treatments and minor surgery. She'd need 3 or 4 sessions spaced several weeks apart. The area would be sore and need special care while it healed, but the results were usually excellent. "I want to be honest with you about something," Dr. Reed said. "This procedure will definitely improve the appearance of your shoulder. But from what you've told me about your life, I think you're already changing in ways that might be even more important." Maya wasn't sure what he meant. "You've been hiding from the world for years, right? But in the past few months you've taken on new responsibilities at work, saved money for something you wanted, and started working with children. That takes real strength." Maya had never thought about it that way. "I'm not saying you shouldn't have the procedure," Dr. Reed continued. "I'm just saying that you're already braver than you give yourself credit for." For some reason, hearing that from a doctor made Maya feel proud of herself in a way she hadn't experienced before. Dr. Reed scheduled her first treatment for 3 weeks later, giving her time to think about everything they'd discussed. He handed her a folder with information about the procedure and aftercare instructions. "Do you have any other questions?" he asked. Maya had dozens of questions, but for some reason her mind had gone blank. "I don't think so." "Well, if you think of anything before your next appointment, don't hesitate to call." "And Maya?" She looked up at him. "For what it's worth, I think you're making a good decision. Not just about the procedure, but about deciding to stop hiding." Walking back to her car, Maya felt different than she had when she'd arrived. She'd expected to feel nervous about the upcoming treatment, but instead she felt excited. Dr. Reed had made the whole process seem manageable and normal. She also felt something else she couldn't quite name. Dr. Reed had talked to her like she was interesting, like her thoughts and feelings mattered. Maya couldn't remember the last time someone had made her feel that way. As she drove home, Maya found herself looking forward to her next appointment in a way that surprised her. Maya arrived for her first laser treatment 15 minutes early, sitting in her car to calm her nerves. She'd spent the past 3 weeks thinking about her conversation with Dr. Reed, replaying his words about her being braver than she realized. For some reason, she found herself looking forward to seeing him again. The treatment itself was easier than Maya had expected. Dr. Reed explained each step as he worked, making sure she was comfortable. The laser felt like tiny rubber bands snapping against her skin, but it wasn't unbearable. What surprised Maya most was how normal their conversation felt during the procedure. "How are the weekend story times going?" Dr. Reed asked while adjusting the laser settings. Maya was touched that he remembered. "Really well, actually. Last Saturday, one of the kids brought me a drawing of the story I read. I think I was more excited than she was. That's sweet. What kind of stories do you read to them?" "Mostly picture books about animals or adventures. The kids love stories where the main character is scared at first but finds their courage." Dr. Reed paused his work for a moment. "Sounds like those stories might mean something to you, too." Maya felt her cheeks warm. "Maybe a little." After the treatment, Dr. Reed walked her to the scheduling desk personally instead of having a nurse do it. Maya noticed that he didn't do that with other patients, but she didn't want to read too much into it. "See you in 4 weeks, he said. "And Maya?" "Don't be surprised if people start commenting on how confident you seem. I've noticed a difference just since your consultation." During the drive home, Maya kept touching the spot where her treatment had been. The area was tender and covered with a special bandage, but underneath she could imagine the birthmark already starting to fade. Her second appointment a month later felt almost like visiting a friend. Dr. Reed asked about her week, and Maya found herself telling him about the new book display she'd created at the library featuring stories about personal growth and change. "Sounds like you're inspiring people to think about their own transformations," Dr. Reed said as he prepared for the treatment. "I never thought about it that way." "You should. Sometimes the best teachers are people who are going through their own journey of change." This time, Maya was brave enough to ask Dr. Reed some questions about himself. She learned that he'd only been working at Coastal Medical Center for 8 months, having moved from a practice in Los Angeles. "What made you leave California?" Maya asked. Dr. Reed was quiet for a moment while he focused on a particularly stubborn area of the birthmark. "I wanted to work somewhere that felt more personal. In LA, everything was rushed. Patients were just appointments on a schedule. Here, I actually get to know the people I'm helping. Do you miss the big city? Sometimes. But I like the pace here better. There's something to be said for taking time to really talk to people." Maya understood exactly what he meant. By her third appointment, Maya noticed that Dr. Reed seemed to schedule longer time slots for her visits. Other patients came and went quickly, but her appointments always seemed to run longer than necessary. She didn't mind at all. "You know," Dr. Reed said during the third treatment, "I've been thinking about what you said about the children's stories, the ones where characters find their courage. What about them? I was wondering if you'd ever thought about writing stories yourself. You have a really interesting way of looking at things." The suggestion caught Maya completely off guard. "Me, write stories? Why not?" "You understand what it feels like to be afraid and what it takes to overcome that fear. That's exactly what good stories are about." Maya had never considered herself a writer, but something about the idea excited her. "I wouldn't even know where to start, with what you know. Write about someone who's scared but finds the courage to change their life." That evening, Maya sat at her kitchen table with a notebook she'd never used. Whiskers curled up nearby as she stared at the blank page, Dr. Reed's suggestion echoing in her mind. Finally, she started writing about a young woman who was afraid of her own reflection. The words came easier than she'd expected. Maya wrote for 2 hours straight, barely noticing the time pass. When she finally stopped, she'd filled 8 pages with the beginning of a story about a girl who decided to stop hiding from the world. During her 4th appointment, Maya surprised herself by mentioning the story to Dr. Reed. "That's wonderful," he said, genuinely pleased. "How does it feel to write?" "Scary and exciting at the same time." "Sounds familiar," Maya laughed. "Everything feels that way lately." As Dr. Reed worked on what would likely be her final laser treatment, Maya realized she felt sad about the process ending. These monthly visits had become something she looked forward to, not just because of the treatment but because of the conversations. "Dr. Reed, she said during a pause in the procedure. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Do you ever feel like people don't really see you? Like they only see what they expect to see?" Dr. Reed stopped what he was doing and looked at her thoughtfully. "That's a really insightful question. Why do you ask?" Maya hesitated. "I've spent so many years trying to be invisible that I'm not sure I know how to be seen. But with you, I feel like I can just be myself. You should feel that way with everyone. Maya, the person I see in these appointments, the one who's thoughtful and creative and brave enough to read to children and write stories, that's who you really are. Sometimes I think you see a better version of me than actually exists." Dr. Reed set down his equipment and gave her his full attention. "Can I tell you something? In my line of work, I meet a lot of people who want to change something about their appearance. Most of them think that changing how they look will automatically change how they feel about themselves." Maya waited for him to continue. "But you're different. You're changing from the inside out. The laser treatments are just catching up to the work you've already done on yourself." Maya felt tears prick at her eyes. No one had ever talked to her the way Dr. Reed did, like she was worth understanding. "The truth is," Dr. Reed continued, "these appointments have been the highlight of my workdays. You remind me why I became a doctor in the first place." "What do you mean?" "I wanted to help people feel better about themselves. But somewhere along the way I started feeling like just another doctor doing procedures. Talking with you has reminded me that this work is about so much more than medical techniques." As Maya scheduled what would likely be her final appointment, she felt a strange mix of excitement and sadness. The birthmark was almost completely gone, and she was more confident than she'd ever been in her life. But she would miss these conversations with Dr. Reed. "Maya," Dr. Reed said as she prepared to leave, "I want you to know that watching your transformation has been really inspiring. You should be proud of how far you've come." Walking to her car, Maya realized that Dr. Reed was right. She had transformed, but not in the way she'd originally expected. The birthmark removal was just a small part of a much bigger change. She was becoming the person she'd always wanted to be, someone who wasn't afraid to be seen, someone who had something valuable to offer the world. That night, Maya continued working on her story, writing about a character who discovered that the real transformation had been happening inside her all along. As she wrote, she found herself thinking about Dr. Reed and wondering if he knew how much their conversations had meant to her. Maya also found herself wondering what would happen after her treatments were finished. Would she ever see Dr. Reed again? The thought of not having those monthly conversations made her feel lonelier than she'd felt in months. Maya's final appointment was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in late autumn. She woke up early, nervous about seeing the final results, but also sad that her regular visits with Dr. Reed were coming to an end. Over the past few months, she'd grown to look forward to their conversations, more than the actual treatments. She arrived at Coastal Medical Center 30 minutes early and decided to wait in the lobby reading area instead of sitting in her car. Maya had brought along the story she'd been writing, planning to work on it while she waited. The main character was finally ready to face the world without hiding, just like Maya herself. While flipping through a magazine someone had left on the coffee table, Maya's heart stopped. There, on the glossy pages of Pacific Coast Lifestyle, was a large photo of Dr. Reed in an expensive-looking suit, standing next to an elegant older woman and a distinguished man in front of what looked like a luxury hotel. The headline read, "Reed Family Opens Fifth Luxury Resort. Young Doctor Balances Medicine with Family Empire." Maya's hands shook as she read the article. Dr. Alexander Reed, heir to the Reed hospitality fortune, was the son of one of the wealthiest families on the West Coast. The Reed family owned a chain of 5-star resorts and hotels worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The article mentioned that despite his family's expectations for him to join the business full-time, Alexander had insisted on pursuing medicine. "He's always been determined to make his own mark in the world," his mother was quoted as saying. "We're proud that he's chosen to help people, even if it means he can't dedicate himself fully to the family business." The article went on to describe Dr. Reed's medical training at prestigious universities, his volunteer work in developing countries, and his current practice at Coastal Medical Center. It also mentioned that he was considered one of the area's most eligible bachelors, having dated several prominent socialites over the years. Maya felt like she couldn't breathe. All this time she'd thought Dr. Reed was just a regular doctor, who understood what it was like to work hard for something you wanted. She'd shared her stories about saving money, working extra shifts and struggling to afford the treatments. How foolish she must have seemed to someone who could probably buy the entire medical center without thinking twice about it. Worse, Maya realized that Dr. Reed had never mentioned his family or background during any of their conversations. He'd let her believe they were equals, two people working toward their goals. Now she felt like he'd been pretending, maybe even laughing at her behind his professional smile. "Maya Collins?" the receptionist called. Maya quickly closed the magazine and shoved it under other publications on the table. She followed the nurse to the examination room, her mind racing with questions and hurt feelings. When Dr. Reed entered the room with his usual warm smile, Maya couldn't bring herself to look at him directly. "How are you feeling today?" he asked, settling onto his stool. "Excited to see the final results?" Maya nodded but kept her eyes focused on her hands. Her whole body felt tense, and she knew Dr. Reed would notice something was wrong. "Is everything okay? You seem different today." "I'm fine," Maya said quickly. "Let's just get this over with." Dr. Reed looked concerned but began removing the protective bandages from Maya's shoulder. When the last bandage came off, he smiled broadly. "Maya, this looks incredible. The birthmark is completely gone and the healing is perfect. Come look in the mirror." Maya stood and walked to the full-length mirror in the corner of the room. Her shoulder looked exactly like her other shoulder, smooth and unmarked. For a moment, she forgot about the magazine article and felt pure joy at seeing herself without the birthmark that had defined her for so long. "It's amazing," she whispered. "You're amazing," Dr. Reed said softly. "Look how far you've come since your first appointment. Do you remember how nervous you were?" The kindness in his voice made Maya's chest ache. How could someone who had everything be so good at pretending to care about someone like her? "Dr. Reed," Maya said, turning away from the mirror, "why didn't you tell me about your family?" The question hung in the air between them. Dr. Reed's expression changed from confusion to understanding, and Maya knew he realized she'd found out about his background. "What did you find out?" he asked quietly. "Everything. The hotels, the money, the fact that you're some kind of millionaire heir who's just playing doctor? Maya, that's not fair, isn't it?" Maya's voice was stronger now, fueled by hurt and embarrassment. "You let me talk about saving every penny for these treatments. You listened to me worry about the cost and never once mentioned that you probably spend more on lunch than I make in a week." Dr. Reed stood up, looking genuinely upset. "My family's money has nothing to do with who I am or why I became a doctor." "Of course it does. You could have any life you wanted, but you chose this. For you, medicine is like a hobby. For people like me, doctors like you are our only hope of changing something we hate about ourselves." "People like you?" Dr. Reed repeated. "Maya, you're one of the strongest, most genuine people I've ever met. My family's wealth doesn't change that." Maya felt tears threatening, but she was too angry to cry. "Don't you understand? I thought we were, I don't know, equals somehow. I thought you understood what it was like to work for something you really wanted." "I do understand that." "No, you don't. When you wanted to become a doctor, I bet your family paid for the best medical school without you having to worry about loans or working extra jobs. When you decided to move here, you probably didn't have to count every dollar to make sure you could afford an apartment." Dr. Reed was quiet for a long moment. "You're right about some of that. I was lucky to have opportunities that not everyone has." "Lucky," Maya repeated bitterly. "That's one way to put it. But Maya, everything I said to you about your strength and courage, I meant every word. Your family's bank account doesn't determine your worth as a person. Easy to say when you've never had to worry about money." Dr. Reed ran his hands through his hair, looking frustrated. "You know what? You're right. I don't know what it's like to save for months to afford something I need. I don't know what it's like to work extra shifts just to pay for medical care." Maya felt a small satisfaction at his admission, but it was overshadowed by her disappointment. "But I do know what it's like to have people judge me before they know me," Dr. Reed continued. "I know what it's like to wonder if someone likes me for who I am or what my family has. I know what it's like to feel like I have to prove I'm more than just my last name." Maya looked at him then, seeing something vulnerable in his expression that she'd never noticed before. "The reason I didn't tell you about my family is because with you, I felt like just Alex. Not the Reed heir, not the guy who should be running hotels instead of practicing medicine. Just a doctor talking to a patient who was brave enough to change her life." "But it was a lie," Maya said softly. No, it wasn't. Everything between us has been real. My family's money doesn't change the fact that I admire your courage, or that our conversations have meant more to me than any I've had in years. Maya wanted to believe him, but the hurt was too fresh. She felt like she'd been living in a fantasy, thinking that someone like Dr. Reed could really see her as an equal. I need to go, she said, gathering her things. Maya, please. Can we talk about this? But Maya was already walking toward the door. She paused with her hand on the handle and turned back one last time. Thank you for the treatments. Dr. Reed, the results are perfect. As she left the medical center, Maya's shoulder felt lighter without the birthmark. But her heart felt heavier than it had in months. Maya spent the next 2 weeks avoiding mirrors and trying to forget about Dr. Reed. Even though her shoulder looked perfect, and she could finally wear the clothes she'd always wanted, she felt more confused than ever. The physical change she'd worked so hard for seemed meaningless now that her heart was hurting. She threw herself into work at the library, staying late to reorganize entire sections and volunteering for every extra project Mrs. Rodriguez offered. The children's story time on Saturdays became her only source of joy. When she read to the kids about brave characters finding their way through difficult situations, she wondered if she'd ever feel that confident again. Maya also continued writing her story, but now the main character felt stuck between two worlds, never quite fitting into either one. She wrote late into the night, trying to work through her feelings on paper. On a rainy Thursday evening, Maya was closing up the library when she heard someone knock on the glass doors. The library had been closed for an hour, but through the rain-streaked windows, she could see Dr. Reed standing outside, completely soaked. Maya's first instinct was to pretend she hadn't seen him and leave through the back exit, but something about the way he stood there, not demanding entry but simply waiting, made her walk to the door. We're closed, she said through the glass. I know. I just wanted to talk to you for a few minutes. Maya hesitated, then unlocked the door. Dr. Reed stepped inside, dripping water onto the library floor. You're soaking wet, Maya said before she could stop herself. I've been walking around downtown for an hour, trying to figure out what to say to you. Maya grabbed some paper towels from behind the circulation desk and handed them to him. Why are you here, Dr. Reed? Alex, he said quietly. My friends call me Alex. We're not friends, aren't we? Because I thought we were something more than that. Maya felt her heart skip, but she forced herself to stay strong. You lied to me. I never lied. I just didn't tell you everything about my background. That's the same thing. Alex dried his hair with the paper towels, considering her words. You're right. I should have been honest from the beginning. Maya crossed her arms, waiting for him to continue. Can I tell you why I didn't say anything about my family? Maya nodded reluctantly. Alex looked around the library, taking in the quiet atmosphere and rows of books. This is going to sound strange, but I've never felt like I belonged anywhere. My family expects me to take over the hotel business, but I hate everything about that world. The people are fake, the conversations are shallow, and everyone wants something from you. Maya listened despite herself. When I became a doctor, I thought I'd finally found my place. But even in medical school, people treated me differently when they found out about my family's money. Some acted like I didn't deserve to be there because I hadn't struggled for it. Others suddenly became my best friends because they wanted connections. So you decided to hide who you are? I decided to let people see who I really am before they saw my bank account. Maya understood that feeling more than she wanted to admit. Hadn't she spent years hiding her birthmark because she was afraid of how people would judge her? Maya, from the moment I met you, you treated me like a regular person. You talked to me about your dreams, your fears, your work with the children. You saw me as Alex the doctor, not Alex the Reed heir. But that wasn't the real you. It was the most real I've ever been with anyone. Alex moved closer, and Maya could see the sincerity in his eyes. Do you remember what you asked me during one of your appointments? About feeling like people don't really see you? Maya nodded. That's exactly how I've felt my entire life. Until I met you. Maya felt her resolve weakening. Alex, we come from completely different worlds. You can't understand what my life is like. You're right, I can't fully understand your financial struggles. But I can understand what it's like to feel like you don't fit in. To wonder if people like you for the right reasons. To want to be valued for who you are inside. Maya had to admit he had a point. Besides, Alex continued with a small smile, you're wrong about us coming from different worlds. We both work in jobs where we help people, We both care about making a difference. We both understand what it's like to feel scared but do something brave anyway. It's not that simple. Why not? Maya struggled to find the words. Because what if I'm not good enough for your world? What if your family thinks I'm just some poor girl trying to use you? Alex's expression softened. Maya, you're the strongest person I know. You saved money for months to change something about yourself. You faced your fears to work with children. You're writing a story that comes from your heart. How could anyone think you're not good enough? Because I'm a librarian who lives above a bakery and drives a 10-year-old car. And I'm a doctor who chose to work at a small clinic instead of joining my family's business. We're both people who chose to follow our hearts instead of taking the easy path. Maya felt tears starting to form. She'd been so focused on their differences that she hadn't thought about what they had in common. Maya, I need you to know something. These past few months getting to know you have been the best part of my life. You made me remember why I became a doctor in the first place. What do you mean? You reminded me that medicine isn't about procedures or techniques. It's about helping people find the courage to become who they want to be. Watching your transformation inside and out reminded me what real success looks like. Maya wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I was so angry when I found out about your family. I know. I should have told you earlier. I felt like such a fool, talking about saving money and working extra shifts. You shouldn't feel foolish about being responsible and working hard for something you wanted. That's admirable. Maya looked at Alex, really looked at him, and saw not the wealthy heir from the magazine, but the kind doctor who had listened to her fears and encouraged her dreams. Alex, I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about changing from the inside out. What about it? I realized that the birthmark was never the real problem. I was afraid of being seen, of being judged, of not being enough. Removing it was just the first step. And now? Maya smiled for the first time in 2 weeks. Now I think I'm ready to stop hiding from other things too. Alex stepped closer. Like what? Like how I feel about you. How do you feel about me? Maya took a deep breath, channeling the courage that had brought her to the medical center in the first place. I think I'm falling in love with you. Not Dr. Reed the heir, just Alex the person who makes me feel like I'm worth knowing. Alex's face lit up with joy. Maya, I've been in love with you since our second appointment. You're everything I never knew I was looking for. They stood there in the quiet library, surrounded by thousands of stories, about to start writing their own. So what happens now? Maya asked. Now we take it one day at a time. I want to meet your sister and hear about your story writing. I want to come to one of your Saturday story times. I want to show you that different worlds can come together when the people in them really care about each other. Maya nodded, feeling more hopeful than she had in weeks. And Maya? Yes? Thank you for teaching me that the best transformations happen when someone believes in who you really are. As they left the library together, Maya realized that her journey had led her to something better than just physical confidence. She'd found someone who saw her completely and loved what he saw. More importantly, she'd learned to see herself the same way.